Which are the 7 golf rules that players want changed? While the rules of golf are essential to ensure fair play, some of them are very outdated. These are the ones that need serious overhauling. This will be an eye-opener. Our team rummaged through the pages of the PGA Tour, My Golf Spy, and Links magazine records to segregate the rules most players want to be rewritten. Join us as we see how the players want these rules changed for the better. What about eliminating the stroke and distance penalty for out of bounds and lost balls? Hitting a ball out of bounds or losing a ball are two of the most punishing mistakes a golfer can make. One bad swing translates to a 2-shot penalty, given that he has to return to his original spot and take an additional stroke. Few players like this rule because of the harshness of the penalty. A player hitting a tee shot into the middle of a lake may significantly be in better shape than a player hitting it out of bounds, despite the fact that shooting into water is just as bad as shooting out of bounds given the harshness of the penalty. Because a lot of courses are not marked properly, a player may not be aware that when he hits a ball, it could go out of bounds simply because of the absence of stakes that border the course from the wilderness next to it. Stroke and distance penalties only slow the game down, since a player hitting a shot out of bounds has to trudge all the way back to the tee to hit again. The rule change could be first estimating the spot where the ball was lost or went out of bounds based on where the ball was approximately lost or where the ball crossed out of bounds. Then dropping the ball closest to that area, taking full relief and incurring a 1-stroke penalty. What about stricter standards for pace of play? Golf has currently a pace of play crisis on hand, as rounds are routinely taking beyond 5 hours to finish. Many players, including those considered the best in the world, are not aware of how much time they are taking to take a shot. Pace of play penalties almost never happen on the PGA Tour. It is almost never enforced at any level. Time is a legitimate game rule. A standard needs to be set for players to play in a reasonable amount of time. This standard must be strictly enforced for all players at the risk of getting docked a penalty stroke. Just like in any other sport, it is a skill to play a game within a reasonable time. For golf in particular, there are a number of reasons why it needs to get faster, the most important of which is its viability as an entertaining TV product. The rule change should be giving players 40 seconds to play their shot upon reaching their ball. Like state troopers handing out tickets to reckless drivers who go beyond the speed limit, rules officials should have the prerogative to issue a 1-stroke penalty to a player who doesn't hit his ball within 40 seconds at any time in a given round. Players who consistently fall behind pace should get timed for their every shot until they get accustomed to taking their shots within the requisite time limit. How about being more liberal when it comes to interpretations of embedded balls and balls resting on divots? When a ball plugs far enough to break the ground surface, making it almost impossible to hit the next shot, then it is interpreted as an embedded ball. When this happens, free relief is granted to the player. Granting of the free relief makes sense as it's usually a direct result of soft soil conditions. The free relief is granted within the general area, which essentially covers the whole course other than penalty areas and bunkers. There are additional instances where free relief is not granted. First is when a ball gets embedded as a result of anything other than the player's stroke, such as the ball being pushed into the ground by someone stepping on it. Second is if the ball is driven straight into the ground without getting airborne. And last is when a ball is dropped and taking the relief. In the case of a ball resting in a divot, which can be manifestly inconsistent, there is no relief offered. The rule change would be that all embedded balls within the general area would warrant free relief for the player. In addition to this, relief should also be granted from divots, including sand-filled divots, provided that there is a consensus agreement that the ball does in fact lay in a divot. What about not limiting the number of clubs a player can carry? A player can only carry a maximum of 14 clubs during a tournament. This limit was set to encourage players to learn how to craft their shot making, given the limitation of the clubs that you can use. However, many are of the opinion that the impact of the limitation is lost when the limit is set so high at 14. Eliminating this limit could possibly make the game slightly easier for some, while making it more fun and enjoyable for others. Also, few people would go beyond 16 or 17 clubs given the weighted ads and golf bags that you have to carry around. Using more than 14 clubs may not actually be an advantage, as the more clubs a player carries, the more difficult it would be to master them all or choose which to use in any given situation. Under the current rules, playing with more than 14 clubs could earn a player a maximum 4-stroke penalty, which is not only unnecessary, but also ridiculous. It's a matter of making the game simpler by allowing everyone to carry what they want. As long as the clubs are conforming to tournament standards, players should be allowed to carry as many clubs as they wished. If that 15th club on the golf bag can help a player pull off incredible shots, it would certainly benefit the PGA Tour as an entertainment TV product. How about the creation of a more lenient wrong ball rule? Hitting the wrong ball is something a lot of golfers do unintentionally. It carries a 2-shot penalty and is corrected by going back and playing the ball all over again to finish the hole. If the ball is lost, the player goes through the stroke and distance routine. For example, a player hooks his tee shot way left and searches for his ball. He finds a ball and hits it. However, it was not his ball. He then has to go back to the tee and redo the whole scenario. The rule change could be that hitting a wrong ball would result in a 1-stroke penalty, requiring the player to return to their previous ball. However, if the ball is lost, the player can take a drop at the estimated location of the lost ball. What about extending the time limit in finding a lost ball? A ball is declared as lost if it cannot be found within 3 minutes after a player and his caddy begins to look for it. 3 minutes is not a fair amount of time in trying to avoid a stroke and distance penalty. Before 2019, players were allowed 5 minutes to find a wayward pellet. It is logical given the severe penalty for a lost ball. The additional 2 minutes does not substantially affect the length of a round, even if it is multiplied by the several ball searches that may occur during the course of one round. To put it bluntly, there are far more fairer ways to address the slow play pace in golf. What about allowing the use of distance measuring devices? While the USGA sanctioned the use of distance measuring devices, such as laser rangefinders in 2019, committees in charge of competitions have the option of prohibiting them via local rules. As a matter of fact, they are still prohibited in many events, including PGA Tour events and 3 of the majors. And if they are allowed, players can only use their distance measuring function, but not their slope reading functions. It was only in the PGA Championship that they were allowed starting in 2021. To avoid players spending 5 minutes pacing and looking at yardage books, leading to collective hours of unnecessary chatting and discussions with their caddies, why not let them use these devices that give precise yardage with a simple click of a button? It's not like their judgment and skill are no longer required, as they still have to choose the right club to execute the optimal shot for a given situation. These are just 7 of the golf rules that often cause controversies on the course that need some rewriting. You would be relieved to know that becoming our regular subscriber does not entail any rules at all.